All right. A kind request from one of my subscribers is to have a second part to my conspiracy theories video. It was almost done, but my camera cut out. I was basically talking about how beautiful it is when you can see a moment of togetherness with human beings, where there's no manipulation going on. It happens, and it's a beautiful thing. I really think the source of conspiracies and these evil things that happen in the world, if I had to guess, the main reason for it is physical ugliness. I think it all comes back to that. You ever seen the CEO of a company that was good looking? And sometimes they're not just ugly, they're just almost inhuman looking. Physical ugliness. These people, they want, say like it's a guy, he wants to get the girl. He can't get the girl unless he pays for her. She's not going to do anything with him. If he just walks up and says, "Hey, I like you," she'll say, "Yeah. And I like this street over here. I'm going to walk down it now." They would never ever have female affection if it wasn't for the way money has infested the world and been such a necessity. I really think that's where money comes from. The ugly guys who couldn't get the girls. That's my own little theory on where conspiracies come from. But what we're dealing with now is just so ridiculous and so unnecessary. And it's frightening because they got all kinds of power to do things now. What was most frightening about 9/11 is that was basically an exhibition. They were showing us what they can do now. They molecularly destroyed those buildings. There were bombs that went off. All these people that argue with these different points about 9/11, they don't take into consideration that maybe all those things are involved. That, yeah, there were bombs, there was thermite, there were nukes, and there were directed energy weapons. Something that's so foreign, If you really buy into all the UFO talk, I don't get into that very much. Aliens, you won't catch me making vids about UFOs. I believe in aliens, I believe in extraterrestrials, and, I'll watch a video about the Anunnaki and the Sumerian legends as long as anybody else. And I think there's something to all of the talk about the megalithic platforms that are in real strategic places around the Middle East, like Baalbek and the Temple Mount and places in Egypt. And I believe in a pre-flood civilization. And I believe that they had technology that we don't, and that maybe they had records of it hidden. And if the case is that human beings found them and are implementing them and figuring them out, and they're testing them out now. You ever wonder, how the hell does a cell phone work? If you're in a basement and you get a call from New York and you're in Mexico and you're in a basement, don't you think that's amazing? How is that possible? Nothing like that was even remotely possible, 15 years ago. So things are happening fast and it's weird, and now pilots are losing their jobs. All these drone attacks and the weather that's been going on. I get a lot of people talking about, I told myself I'd still dress like this as long as there was snow on the ground. And it's March 28th, 2013, and there's snow on the ground. And in the Midwest, America. And I have some subscribers that are saying that it's because they're manipulating the weather and they're testing it out. Like the big ones like Watergate, Kennedy, the moon landings, and 9/11. Yeah, those are glaring conspiracies. Just not even a theory about it. You can see, and it goes so far that, the Sabruta film for Kennedy, there's a chance that was manipulated. Everyone thinks that that's just raw footage. But if you watch it, from what you get to see, some of the stuff doesn't make sense. Like, there's people in the background as the car goes by that are not standing there in a photograph from the other side of the park. So they were placed there, you know, digitally. The moon landings is just beyond... I mean, those guys were up there for 2 weeks in a little module. Now, I went to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., and I remember having an epiphany. There's the lunar module standing there, the actual one from Apollo 11. And just a little bit away, hanging from the ceiling, is the Starship Enterprise, the model that they used in the original Star Trek television series. 14 feet long, hanging right next to the lunar module. They look exactly the same. They look like they were made by the same person. And it clicked on me. And I asked the guy, I said, can I go into the lunar module? He's like, no. Why? Why can't we go in the lunar module? Why not? They don't let you in there. It's standing there. There's no sign of wear. It's covered with the gold tin foil, you name it. That's a television prop. That was never in outer space. That never suffered the heat and all the cosmic rays of outer space. That is a film prop, just like the Enterprise hanging from the ceiling a few feet away. Neil Armstrong was probably mortified his whole life. Like, he never gave any interviews. That kind of gives it away. You know, you would think that someone has an experience like that, they would be wanting to be just forthcoming with their impressions, and just, you know, if he really thought that's one small step for man, one leap for mankind, he'd want to make the leap for mankind go pretty far with, you know, relating his experiences and his thoughts. He never gave a private interview. Now, he would give interviews and stuff, but it was never this specific thing about the moon. And Buzz Aldrin, boy, he came so close so many times just admitting it. He really kind of did admit it in code. But those guys were actors. And, yeah, they were trained pilots, and they did all kinds of things, but they didn't go to the moon. What really throws off conspiracy theories is like what Noam Chomsky said. It's that whole concept, like, as long as the lie is huge, it'll work even more. Because people think, no one would attempt that big of a lie, you know? And that's good logic. Because you think to yourself, how many people would have to be in on it to be bought off, and the chance of somebody leaking the information is too great. Those are all valid things to say. And it is amazing. But we've seen case after case of this. 9/11 basically established that it's very possible. Remember the Harley guy? The actor says, and I just saw the second one ream into the towers. And what he says is just BS. You'd be surprised what money can do. You know, I mean, the Federal Reserve, you got to think about it. They print phony money, and they just give it to people. You know, all the people that complain about the Zionists being the head of everything, it's because the Zionists and the Federal Reserve print out all this money and just give it to these Zionists that want to be the head of this corporation or that, and they can outbid everyone because they get free money. It doesn't matter. That's the reason for it. They didn't earn it or anything like that. What do you think Larry Silverstein got the cash to buy the World Trade Center? Federal Reserve friends. And it's just not real hard to figure out, you know, when you got control over the printing presses of money, and it's stipulated in the Federal Reserve Act that they're not accountable to Congress for anything they do. They don't have to explain anything. They can do anything. They can print whatever, and it doesn't go on any kind of accounting sheet. The Federal Reserve never pays taxes, so they don't have to make any accounting for anything they do. And they have planes that take off all the time full of money going to this part of the world, that part of the world, cash. Not even electronic transfers. That's what you're dealing with. Jesse Ventura makes me so mad with his conspiracy theory show because the Zionists control the station that he broadcasts that on. And, you know, he's supposed to be this guy looking all tough at everybody, going around with his camera crew. But then you realize the setups. Watch his show. What I mean is, like, watch the show. And, see, like, he's talking to somebody, and look at all the different shots. There's like 5 different angles that he gets. But then you cut back and you realize that there would have to be a cameraman standing there on the other side to have gotten that shot for it to be in time. They're not there. So that means there's 2 takes. So it's not an impromptu moment. It's set up. Little things like that. It's just like, this is extensive. It's an expansive charade. It's all just like a circus. Just vaudeville. I mean, just a joke. So, like, I think I've always thought Watergate was a conspiracy, like the real thing. Like, I mean, where, you know, Woodward and Bernstein, they didn't interview some informant. They started printing those articles about Deep Throat, you know, giving them these top secret inside look at government corruption, and they would meet him in the garage somewhere. You think the FBI wouldn't have followed those guys? You really think? I mean, they had it as a series in the newspaper. Oh, Deep Throat said this, Deep Throat said that. And then they go see Deep Throat again and no one knows who Deep Throat is. You know who Deep Throat is? You. Their phallic organ is down your throats, and you are putting your mouth on that, and it's going deep down your throat. You're stupid, is what they're saying. That's the whole point of Deep Throat. These people are really going to put their mouths on this big fictional cock, and they're just going to take it all the way down into the depth of their throat. That's what Deep Throat means. It was all just a setup, just to see what people would do. All these things are. And it's just, you know, whatever Nixon wanted to do, whatever his part was, he just wanted to get out of it, I think. He just didn't want to be president anymore. He wanted to go play golf. So, they just concocted this whole thing. And what gave me the idea for that was like, I believe it was Bob Woodward. Yeah. After busting Nixon, after supposedly being against executive branch corruption and just savagery, he writes this book about Bush and Rumsfeld and that whole bit going into Iraq. And it was like he was on their side. And the whole book's about basically praising Bush and all of his nonsense over there. And I was like, wait a minute, this is the Watergate guy. And then it occurred to me, he's just a soldier in their army. He just does what they want, you know. He's a famous journalist, so they brought him in to sell this idea. People are like, oh, he's a genuine reporter. Whatever he writes is 18 karat gold. When you think about it, you know, if he was just making up nonsense with the Watergate and the CIA was telling him what to say, just to see how the public would react to it, then he's just a hired gun. Nothing he writes is genuine. It's not like he's uncovering or describing anything real. He's just giving you a fictional story to go deep down your throat.